Puppets. Hey, Sue, guess what happened last week? I don't know, Joss. What happened? We reached 20,000 subscribers. Yay! Yes, we are fabulous. Really? Yes, because we're BFFs, and that stands for Best Fabulous Friends. Oh, but we're not responsible for 20,000 subscribers. Why not? Because we're sock puppets. We can't even subscribe once. Well, then who is responsible? Them. Yeah. You're fabulous. Yes, 20,000 subscribers in 10 weeks. So thank you very, very much. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about what we've accomplished in the last 10 weeks and what we're going to accomplish, hopefully, in the next 10. See you in a minute. Okay, in the last 10 weeks, we have, aside from acquiring 20,000 subscribers, and thank you so much for spending your weekend mornings with me, we have done 3 major giveaways, the 2 steampunk lamps, the beautiful Royal Hager vase from Kelly Williams, and we're working on our 4th, which is tomorrow. That's the Louis Vuitton handbag, plus our pen giveaways. And those are made by Lisa from Desert Dragonworks, and she is providing these free of charge. Also, Lisa is working on flatware sets for people in need, people with arthritis, carpal tunnel, whatever. So that's really taken off. And it's so wonderful that our viewers have gotten involved in this, that it's not just me throwing stuff at you. Our viewers are putting their time and talents to work and making the world a better place. I feel really good about that. So this weekend, I thought to celebrate 20,000 subscribers, we would do the stuff that you want to do. So today we're going to finish up our Etsy shop reviews. We have 3 of those outstanding. And I have a list of questions about eBay from one of our viewers. And I read through the list and I thought, I bet a lot of people are wondering these very same things. So we're going to go through her list of questions about eBay today. So let's start with the shop reviews. And they were, I'm reading, Amy's Texas Gems, Johann van Buren prints, and Vintage Baby by Gina. And what a nightmare. Now, that's not a comment on the shops. That's actually the name of the viewer who wrote these reviews. And when I went through the reviews, I realized she said it better than I ever could. So I'm just going to read you her reviews. And of course, add my own little 2 cents in there, here and there, because I think she did an excellent, excellent job of reviewing these shops, which is just one more way that you folks are getting involved in this and making this your channel. And I feel so good about that. All right. Amy's Texas Gems. A little confused about the shop name since her banner states Amy's Texas Nights. I find Etsy's search engine to be annoying at the best of times, so confusion regarding the shop names wouldn't be of help to me. Nice, neutral, easy on the eyes background. I also like that all the merchandise is listed in very clear categories. I did notice that there was no information on what metals she's using. I'm allergic to nickel, so I don't consider buying anyone that doesn't make it clear that their products are nickel-free. Now, this is an excellent point because although it's tempting to think, oh my goodness, we have a whole new generation of people that are just allergic to every darn thing. No, actually, I think what's happening is improvements in jewelry manufacturing techniques are allowing manufacturers to use metals in jewelry making that will keep costs down. But these are metals that hadn't been previously used. And so we are seeing allergies that were always there. We just didn't see them before because years ago, people just didn't have nickel all over their bodies. Now, if you're putting nickel in jewelry, yes, people are wearing it. They are reacting. So if you are a jewelry maker and you're selling anywhere, eBay, Etsy, brick and mortar's facility, make sure people know what's in your jewelry because a lot of people do have issues. Maybe you've noticed Jocelyn never wears earrings. She doesn't. She has a very hard time with a lot of the metals they use, even in gold and silver jewelry. Um, they'll be adding metals, rhodium finishes on the silver, um, and some base metals in the gold because nothing is 24 karat gold in terms of modern jewelry. It's usually anywhere from 14 up, which means there's a lot of base metal mixed in with that. And she reacts to it. So if you're making jewelry, make sure people know what's in this because it will cost you customers you don't have to lose. I mean, these are people who would buy from you if they knew your jewelry was safe. So I would say absolutely make an effort. And if you know a lot of your buyers have sensitivities, consider carrying a line of nickel-free or maybe change out the earring wires on request, that sort of thing. But she's right. This is a really great little site, Amy's Texas Gems, or maybe Amy's Texas Nights. But it's probably a good idea to sort that out because she's also right about Etsy search engines. I put search terms into Etsy's engines all the time, hit the enter button, and suddenly find something. I didn't type that. I have no idea what it is. Etsy search engines are very, very twitchy. So whatever your shop name is, make sure people are clear about it and they can get to it. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Johann van Buren prints. I have never been able to appreciate art simply because it was by a particular painter. I have purchased a few originals from gallery showings in my time, but only because I love the pieces. Very few have been repeat purchases from a particular artist, even after I came to know them personally. I think what this shop suffers from is a lack of choice. Art is very personal, and this artist has a strong and distinctive style. Good for the artist, but not necessarily good for the seller. Most people don't buy art like they do groceries. It's not something they go looking for on a regular basis, so the market itself is self-limiting. That means that if the buyer doesn't feel compelled by this artist's style when first viewed, they have no reason to buy and even less reason to visit the store again. A brick and mortar gallery may spend a week showing one particular artist's work, but when the week is over, they go back to filling their walls with pieces from various artists with varying styles. There's a good reason for this. This is one thing that did cause me there is one thing that did cause me real discomfort when visiting this store. Everything in the shop was discounted. I'm truly not meaning to be harsh, but the feeling that gave me was of shopping from a clearance bin. I'm sure that wasn't the impression the seller wanted to make. If 2 or 3 items were discounted at a time, the discounts could be moved to different pieces intermittently. I think that would be enough to let the buyer know that the seller was motivated without creating the wrong impression. Once again, this was a very thorough and thoughtful review. Um, when I saw the site, I thought it would be nice to include it because it's something a little different. And it's the sort of thing that uh, a novice seller could get into very quickly and easily. There are many, many companies that sell downloadable digital art. And if you're looking for a little side business, you hook up with one of those companies, you run a little Etsy site for them, and they get a percentage of the cost. You get a percentage of the cost. Very, very easy and like zero overhead business to get into. So I thought it would be good to take a look at one of these businesses. Um, I was very impressed with this review because, as I said, very thoughtful, very thorough. The things that I found lacking in this site was we have one artist, and I'd like to know who he is. Um, I am inferring that he is a South African artist because he's had gallery showings in South Africa. He's clearly had training. This is not a kid with a crayon fooling around. This is a legitimate artist. So who is he? Why isn't there a nice picture of the artist? There is a picture of someone, but I believe that picture is of the seller and not the artist. It would be nice to have a little more background on the artist to get to know him a little more. One of our other viewers had said, why not have some story about each of the art? Something little like, the artist captured this person, this is the artist's nephew, or, he saw this woman and thought she had a very optimistic face. Anything, a line to connect people with the art, because art is all about connections. I have art that things I never thought. I mean, objectively, if you said to me, do you like this sort of thing? I would say, are you kidding? No, ick. But the pieces just totally resonated with me, and it's because of that personal connection. So I think this is a site that could probably stand some help. And I would say personalize it. Make a connection between the artist and the buyer. Show a picture of the artist. Put in a biography, a little something. It would be nice to know who Johan van Buren is, where he got his training. Just move us into his world a little, and we will be a lot more likely to buy his stuff. All right, let's go on to Vintage Baby by Gina. Love the banner and love the, quote, fun, pretty vintage baby, close quote. I had an instant clear understanding of what this shop was about. More importantly, it made me like her, and that put me in the mood to buy, even before I looked at her shop. Her About page allows her upbeat personality to come through. There's a little typo glitch about the fourth line down. She's picked some really complimentary backgrounds to her items, and I found the pictures to be clear and informative. Everything I needed to know about the pieces I looked at was in her short but interesting descriptions. The only thing I found that needed work is her thumbnail photos. Just like you warned us about, Sue. Etsy cropped some of them too tight. All in all, it's hard to believe that this seller hasn't been doing this for a lot longer. I think it's just a matter of time before this shop really takes off. That was the same impression I got from Vintage Baby by Gina. This was just a fun, lively, upbeat shop. It was a good time just looking at the webpage she had created for her shop. That was great. So I'm inclined to agree with What a Nightmare, who, by the way, is what a dream come true, really, because she did all my review work for me. Thank you. But please pay attention to those thumbnails. It's very easy for Etsy to just chop off way too much, and suddenly you have no idea what you're looking at. And for most of us, we see the pictures. When we're going through a search engine, it's picture, picture, picture. And then when we catch something that we respond to, oh, I like that, then we stop and look at the shop name. So those pictures have got to catch the viewer, and you have less than a second to do it. So bang, 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 you need your whole item in the picture. And if Etsy's thumbnail has cropped it, then go back and take another picture if you have to. I have in some of my listings duplicate pictures, pictures that I've cropped and pictures that I haven't, because I know Etsy wants to crop them. So I leave them a picture and say, here you go, you crop this. Because I found that for a long time I was spending way too much time working on listings to try to avoid those cropping issues. It's probably better to just give them a nice big fat picture with plenty of background space that they can cut from. So we have many other reviews on these shops. They were in the video 2 weeks ago, Etsy shop review. If you are the owner of any of these 3 shops, I would strongly recommend you go and take a look, because most of these reviews were from interested buyers. So here, this is your market. Let's see what they want. Now we're doing 3 more shops, and I'm going to list their shop names below. We're going to be doing 3 more shops, and that's for next week. All goes well, because these reviews were delayed by interesting Etsy updates. So the 3 shops we're going to look at next are Secondhand Safari, Reclaimed Mercantile, and Des Vintage. This was an interesting assortment of shops, and for those of you who are just not really motivated to review shops, please look at them, because I've chosen one from Europe, one that is doing very, very well, a brand new shop that's just taken off like crazy. And go in, take a look at them, see what they're doing, and see if you can pull that into your own shop, because they are doing fabulously. And we have yet a 3rd shop, and this is a really nice shop. So we're going to take a look at all of them. Now, our eBay questions, in fact, come from the owner of Des Vintage, and that's the European shop. And this is someone who has some concerns about changes in Etsy. I know, even though Etsy is not asking European sellers to do free shipping for $35 and over, European sellers are going to be competing with US-based shops that will be doing this. And through $35 and over free shipping against the $20 per item going into it that you're getting from Europe. And that's for a small item. Something this big, it's going to cost $20. So are the shipping costs going to kill off the European sellers? And it may, in fact, be the case. I hope it's not. I hope there are ways around this. But if someone's offering free shipping and you have to charge $20 or $30 in shipping extra, you're going to lose buyers. There's no 2 ways around that. That's simple economics. So maybe we can take a look at that and see if there are ways around this. Anyway, let's take a look at the questions that she had about eBay. Okay, what sells better on eBay versus Etsy for vintage antique sellers? So she's talking about folks like us who go into thrift stores, get stuff. What sells better where? Well, my rule of thumb, now this is very, very complicated. It really is. But I've got a rule of thumb that I think can help give you some general advice on this. If eBay has a category for it, it's probably going to sell better on eBay. So if you're selling Barbie dolls, Etsy has no Barbie doll category. eBay has Barbie dolls, vintage Barbie dolls, vintage Barbie dolls pre-1967, vintage Barbie dolls post-1967, contemporary Barbies. You know that's where your market is when you have like 17 different Barbie categories. Plus all of the clone fashion dolls, the Tammys, the Pollys, the Mitzies. They've all got their own categories too. You know eBay's carved out that market. So if eBay has categories for it, you're probably better off there. If eBay doesn't have categories, or if Etsy will bring it up on a quick search, you're better off there. So if I were selling a Barbie doll, eBay, easy. If I were selling mid-century modern, Etsy, because eBay does not have a mid-century modern category. And mid-century in general is mid-century modern, it's Danish modern, it's atomic age, it's mid-century traditional. It's anything that comes out of, say, 1940 to 1960, that period. That's mid-century. So eBay is not catering to that market. Etsy is making more of an effort to cater to that market. And I think it's primarily because individual Etsy sellers have been staking out that market for a longer period of time. So that is my quick rule of thumb. If eBay has a category, you'll get your buyers there. If it doesn't, take a look at Etsy instead. Now, as I say, that is really complicated. I'm just giving you a real quick, fast, use this as a rule of thumb. But we should get into that more, and we will in some future video, specifically what are the kind of things that sell better in one form rather than another. We'll look at that, and we'll also look at why. If you have never bought or sold anything on eBay and plan to sell vintage, how do you get traffic to your account? Is it better to set up a store or use a buyer account? I never used a store on eBay. I dealt with doll buyers, and they would rather believe that they are buying from collectors instead of dealers. It's like that with a lot of things. People look at this and say, I want to buy directly from the person who owned this, or the person they perceive owned it. I don't want to buy this from a dealer. I don't want my item to have gone through a dozen sets of hands. I never found I did the volume of business that would have put me into the category where I would have thought an Etsy shop or an eBay shop would have been valuable for me. I think starting out, you begin selling from your buying account. How to get traffic through to your sales is very easy. Just make sure your prices are competitive. Make sure your photographs are good. Make sure your descriptions are clear, and keep your feedback up. That's going to get people looking at your listings. Once you have people looking at your listings, then you've got them in. They'll go to your see more of this seller's items, because I know I do that. If I find something I like, I want to see what else that seller is offering. And that's how they're going to keep coming back and forth. But remember, Etsy is more of a shop loyalty forum. eBay is more of a hit and run. They're buying the product. They're not buying the seller. So if you want to sell your items, in a way, it's almost like you have to reinvent the wheel every time. Every sale is independent. You're not likely to get buyers coming back because they're not handmade items the way it is on Etsy. But I think the best way you can do it is good, clear listings, good, clear photos, reasonable competitive prices. We've talked about this many, many times. You want to know what your item is worth? Go into the eBay sold listings for that item. That's what it's worth. And just keep your prices reasonable. But good photos, good customer service, there are things that will build you a steady clientele over time. But mostly what you're going to get is people looking at your items when they come up on search engines. It's just the way it works. Okay, when to use the auction or fixed price method on eBay? What works? Both. And I've used both side by side. If you know the value of an item or you know the price of that item, for example, when I sell modern dolls that have a fixed market value, everyone knows what they're worth, to buy it now. People will come to me because they like my customer service. They will see 30, 40 dolls, same price, bang, 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 bang. And at that point, they're looking for the sellers they know. If you know what your item is worth or what you intend to get for it, this is my price, no dickering. Do it as buy it now. If you don't know what your item is worth or if you're flexible, auction. You started off at the lowest amount you feel you could accept for that item and then just let the market take it where it wants to go. In some cases, you'll get much more than you would have gotten if you had simply done this in terms of just a buy it now. And that's happened to me many, many times. Other times, it will sell lower. It is a gamble. But this is entirely up to you. It's sort of a bird in the hand as opposed to two in the bush. Your buy it now price is your bird in the hand price. If you say, I must have $15 for this item, you put it up as a buy it now, you could get $15 or the item might not sell. If you say, I really want 15 for this item, but I'll take 10, and you put it up as an auction and started at $9.99, you could get $9.99, or you could get $35 if a couple of people want it and fight for it. And that's the difference. There's no hard and fast rule. You have to do that yourself. As close as I can come to a hard and fast rule is the value of the item carved in stone? Is this a well-established item, something that's known in the marketplace and has a specific value? A certain type of rookwood pottery, and it sells for $35, and I know because the last 17 times, and I checked in the sold listings, and it sold for $35 every time. That's it. It's worth $35. So you can do a buy it now. In fact, you probably should, because if you list it for much lower than that, it's likely you will sell it for much lower than that to bargain hunters. All right. Do tags and titles on eBay work the same as on Etsy? No, absolutely not. eBay has categories. You are going to go into some predetermined categories. If you don't know what your category is, look for similar items, just using the search engine function, putting in whatever terms make sense to you, and look at the items that come up, and then just click on those listings, and then right under the search bar, it will tell you how this item is listed. It will have the first category and then the first subcategory, the second subcategory, and you follow that right along. And when you find a great many items of the sort you are offering, all having that same category, subcategory, sub-subcategory, that's where you list your item. That's how it works. And you can find just about anything in terms of categories that will work for your item. Not all of them will be optimal, but you'll find something that works. Best way to do it is figure out what other people are doing, because even if they're all wrong, people are used to following their logic. That's where the items are. So, even if you're thinking, gee, I want to go to Denver and this train is going to Detroit, if everybody else is going to Detroit, go to Detroit. That's how it works. So on Etsy, it's the opposite. You pick your own tags and you can pick anything you want. And some of these tags are just absurd, and they encourage you to pick all 13 little tags, even if your item is something that requires only one or two tags. So you will see some just strange terms in there. Um, and let me throw in a little aside. One of our viewers recently informed me that there were sellers out there on Etsy that were using Sumi and Crazy Lamp Lady in their tags, which meant if someone looked for Sumi, their items would come up. Um, and by the way, I wrote to those sellers, the ones who were using Sumi. Jocelyn could write to the Crazy Lamp Ladies people, but they very politely stopped doing it, and I appreciate that. But yes, you have to watch. And of course, I've always looked at the tags on listings on Etsy because long before I even considered opening an Etsy shop, I wanted to know why all this strange stuff. I'm looking for rose medallion china and suddenly I get a listing for balls of yarn. I wanted to know why that was happening. And I found some very, very strange connections. But it's very different. eBay's is much more logical and requires considerably less work because they've done the categorizing for you. Etsy's, there's a lot of work wrapped up, not only in just thinking up these tags, but then you actually have to type them all in. On eBay, you just go through a screen, pick till you're done. And as I say, if you look at what similar pieces, what categories they're being listed in, you'll find other sellers have done all the work for you already. Just do what they did. If you are not willing to accept returns, can you still sell on eBay, or are you forced to accept returns? You are forced to accept returns. That's the simple answer. No. eBay does have their policy, and it's a buyer satisfaction policy, and you are forced to accept returns. If you have accurately photographed and accurately described your items, you will have very, very few returns. I don't want to say you're never going to have any at all because, never say never. But careful listings will keep your returns to an absolute minimum. And if it's buyer's remorse, you don't have to pay for that return. And there's a very good chance that eBay will not force you to even take the return. So you have to be willing to, though. It's eBay's policy. It's all there is to it. And try to keep in mind that we may be sellers, but we're all buyers too. And having some sort of mechanism that allows a buyer to return a product when it's an unwanted product, when it's the wrong kind of product, when it hasn't matched the description, it has to be in there. So, I'm sorry, it's the way it is. Can you charge shipping separately if you ship internationally? Yeah, you pretty much have to. I don't know anyone who does free international shipping for hard goods that are actually mailed. I mean, obviously, if it's a digital download, yes. Free international shipping is, I don't know anyone who does it. I don't think I've ever come across a listing because international shipping starts, even in the United States, where we have a border with Canada and some pretty good crossover, you're looking at $14 to start. So nobody's doing that for free. What's the best payment system to use for eBay if you're new and do not have a PayPal account and rather not open one if possible? It's possible to sell on eBay without PayPal. Is it practical? No. Your buyers are going to be using PayPal. You are required by eBay to take some form of electronic payment. They don't specify what. Some form of electronic payment. It doesn't have to be PayPal. You can take credit cards directly. The problem is if you're new, and that was part of the question, if you're new and do not have a PayPal account, if you're new and you're not accustomed to taking electronic payments and you have an interested buyer and that buyer has no idea how to make an eBay purchase without using PayPal, the two of you are in for a very unpleasant afternoon. Everyone is using PayPal. That's one of those that I think you really just have to suck up and deal. It's not technically a requirement, but not using PayPal will cost you buyers. Even people who have credit cards in their hands and saying, I want to buy something, will default to PayPal. And if they have to go through a complicated credit card billing system, giving you their credit card numbers, especially if you are overseas, they're not going to be comfortable with that. It's just that simple. They will not trust you. It has nothing to do with you. It just has to do with rampant credit card fraud. So I would say the easy answer to this is, yeah, it's possible. The practical answer is no. You really need to open that PayPal account. I'm very sorry. What are the rules to cancel an order? Can you cancel it or do you have to accept all purchases? No, you can cancel anything. You are allowed to do this. If you get too many canceled orders, eBay will probably take action at some point, but we are assuming you are not canceling every order that comes along. The occasional order, canceling it is very, very easy. You just go into so remember I told you your best friend on eBay is that little tiny sitemap button down at the bottom. Well, you click that sitemap, you go into selling, and right underneath that big category of selling, that's all your selling tools, you're going to find cancel an order, cancel, end a listing, that sort of thing. You just click on that. Couldn't be easier. You can easily cancel. So don't worry about that. You do not have to take all purchases. If something goes wrong, you can get out of it. Finally, it would be great to have a line-by-line comparison of the costs of selling on Etsy versus eBay for vintage. Well, that is one that is, again, a little more complicated. So we're going to follow up on that and the what sells better on eBay and Etsy. We're going to follow up on both of those because those are much more complicated topics. We're not going to be able to buzz them off in a few minutes. So anyway, that were several of our questions. Hopefully those were beneficial for all of you. I think that she covered a lot of questions and a lot of concerns that some of you may have had. She just threw it into a nice, concise little bundle for us. All right. So thank you so much for watching and subscribing. And we are going to see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is the Louis Vuitton giveaway. Contest rules and everything are going to be on the bottom of that video. This video, what we have is our 3 new shops we're going to take a look at. And as always, pen giveaways coming up. So you want a pen? Write me a note. Even if you've already sent in a note on another video, comment on this one. Let's face it, if you make it easy for me to give you a pen, you're a lot more likely to get a pen. All right, see you tomorrow.